And welcome back, everyone. And November going to December. And, I did multiple teams for OG Ben 10. So I just occurred to me, why not just do it for all the eras of Ben 10? So this is part one team for Ben 10 Alien Force era. Obviously, we'll get into Ultimate Alien and all that later on. So, as always, the order of the team is essentially the order the aliens showed up. And Ben's first, in this case, starter Pokemon for his first Alien Force team was the Swamp Fire, otherwise known as the only fire grass type that exists in Pokemon, Scovillain. I should also say, occasionally get my takes on Pokemon now and then. Scovillain is, look, a hot pepper Pokemon makes sense, especially for a grass fire type. And look, this whole idea is a two-headed Pokemon. I don't mind that, but there's also multiple peppers. You could have made like a three-headed Hydra grass Pokemon. That could have worked, make it a little bit more draconic looking. As it stands, I've warmed up to this Pokemon, but I don't love it still. Then the next Mon that made it onto the list, or next alien that showed up, was Echo, the silicone-based sonic wave emitting little Pokemon, it kind of looks like a Pokemon, little guy who can duplicate himself multiple times over. That was initially where I was trying to go with the idea, but the problem is, unless you're doing things like Double Team, you can't duplicate yourself. There's no Pokemon that actually does that, save for things like Wishy-Washy School Form, occasionally Mon that have the ability to like draw Mon into battle. And even then, if I were to use something like Phalanx, well, it doesn't really work that way because there's only like 5 of them to begin with, and there's nothing beyond that concept that works for it. So, and beyond that, it's a silicone-based Pokemon. So a metal or steel type would work probably better. So I'm just kind of like racking my brains thinking on the subject. And then I leaned more towards the second aspect of it, the sonic wave emission of it. And luckily, there is a steel-type move called Metal Burst, which basically increases, I believe, your attack and lowers the special defense of your opponent. So I'm like, okay, let me look for a Pokemon that's a steel-type, can learn the move, and can more or less represent multiple Pokemon. The closest I could come to is Magneton. Now, Magneton, admittedly, is hardly all that similar physically to Echo, apart from the fact that it has a sonic burst, it's metal, it's got a couple multiples of, different Pokemon attached. But otherwise, like, this is the closest I could do, and I did not go with Magnezone simply because I didn't feel that worked. Then we got Humongousaur, and for me, there really wasn't much of an option. Now, I could have gone Machoke, because that is kind of a dinosaur-looking fighting type. But I didn't feel like that was right. Humongousaur's whole shtick is, apart from being a physically large dinosaur creature, is he can increase in size. So I needed a Pokemon that could kind of be that, probably be a fighting type, because it is a very... Humongousaur is really just a brawler, that's all it is. It's just pure muscle. And I ultimately landed on Koraidon. Now, is Koraidon, again, a 1-to-1? No. It's probably closer in design than freaking Magneton is to Echo, let's be fair. But the fact is, it does have, it's normally not in combat mode unless you have it active on your team. And so, therefore, its standing up is technically increasing in size. And it is a huge, powerful fighting-type dragon. Now, I could have also gone the route of something more like Komo-o. That I could have also gone with. It's the same typing, but honestly, you want to talk about furthering yourself away from the design itself, that's furthering yourself away from the design. Machoke, ironically, because again, Machoke is technically a little bit more reptilian, but Machamp and Machop are only kind of. In fact, if you actually look at their designs, at least Machop, it actually does almost look like it has gills. But yeah, it's like a dinosaur bodybuilder almost. So, in hindsight, maybe Machoke would have worked. I would not have gone Machamp. Machamp is obviously 4 arms. But Machoke probably has the closest design to Humongousaur, but it's missing a tail is the problem. And the tail makes all the difference. Well, I mean, design-wise, it's closer. But beyond that, I just feel like this works. And if you want to get technical, this can also kind of look like, not a one-to-one, Ultimate Humongosaur, which you get later on in the series. Then the next one up will be Jet Ray, the flying space manta ray that shoots lasers from its tails. Like, now at first, you might think, well, Mantine, it's got to be Mantine. It's a flying manta ray. And initially, that was my guess. That was where I was going to go. It's a flying manta ray. I'm amazed we don't have more another Stingray Pokemon at this point. I am amazed by that. Same like how I'm amazed we don't have more shark-based Pokemon. But with that said, and who knows, maybe we'll get more in this coming region for Gen 10. It's supposed to be based off Indonesia, Southeast Asia, which would be, and it's a lot of water, which would be a perfect place to introduce both of those. But again, with that said, however, there is actually one other mon that isn't so much a manta ray or a stingray, but does work from a design aspect, and that's Gliscor. When you actually look at Jet Ray, and I don't have Jet Ray here at the moment, obviously, but if you actually just look up Jet Ray and compare its design to either Mantine or Gliscor, Gliscor is clearly the better representation, because the whole way the wings are designed are very much like the fins, if you will, of a, not even if you will, the fins of a stingray / manta ray. It's kind of like a wyvern where the hands are kind of connected to the feet a little bit through the membrane of the wings. And his tail is more properly designed to designed more like Jet Ray's tail than Mantine's tail is. It can also use tail-based attacks. So even though it's not a manta ray or stingray, it is the better option, I feel. Then we have one of my personal favorites from Alien Force, Big Chill. Big Chill is basically a combination of a moth and Ghost Freak put together. And really, it came down to two options. Do I go Frostmoth or do I go Frostlass? And I think it's because of the phasing and ghost-like aspects of Big Chill, I went with a Frostlass. Honestly, this could have been either or, though. Hell, if you ever get both these guys in Pokemon Infinite Fusion and mix them together, you could basically just make Big Chill. So, I do think because of the ghost-like aspects of Big Chill, Frostlass, being an ice ghost type, is the better play. But I can totally see a Frostmoth argument being made. Which leads us to the last one, which is Chromastone, which, not surprisingly, that literally Gigalith looks so much like Chromastone, it's not even funny. That's how close it looks to Chromastone. So yeah. Now, with that being said, as always, how balanced is this team? And it's pretty one-to-one with each other. There's no one type that completely decimates this team. Each one of these, but there are a couple crossover weaknesses. For example, grass actually doesn't resist rock. So that means, unfortunately, both your Glaceon and your Scoville are times two, are weak to rock, is what I was trying to get at. Ground, however, does resist rock. Otherwise, Gliscor would also be weak to rock. There's times 2 weaknesses to flying. There's a times 2 weakness to ground, fighting, fire, ice, water, and steel. I mean, you gotta honestly just forego, for the sake of streamlining the process, who's weak to what. If you know Pokemon typing, you know who's weak to what here. Now, with that being said, though, it is much more balanced out in favor of the strengths. You have a times 3 strength against grass, bug, steel, flying, times 4 strength against ice, times 2 strength against water, ground, dragon, and fire. So you've got a lot of advantages on this team as opposed to your weaknesses. It's actually an exceptionally balanced team, because if you actually look at the team, not a single type crosses over. Actually look at actually break it down real quick. So in the few times I've done this, where there has not been any crossover whatsoever with typing, which is why its strengths and advantages are far greater than the weaknesses. And then when it comes down to it, this, I think, is the first time that you could become champion in every single region. Now, I say that, but there's a caveat. Hold on. The only champion I feel that you would struggle with straight out is the only two, I should say, is going to be either Lance, and that simply comes down to the fact that even though you got Glaceon on the team, he starts, I believe, he leads with Gyarados, which means you got to get that Scovillain out there. Probably bring in the Magneton. Unfortunately, the Magneton's either going to take a water attack or a bite or something. I can't remember exactly what he has. And then you could probably ×2 it, but then he's going to bring out Charizard. And I'm going to be honest, you're probably better off just letting the Magneton die. Because if you try to swap in, something else is going to take that hit. Even if it's Gigalith or Gliscor, they're still going to be in trouble. So let the Magneton take the hit, bring in the Gigalith, get some damage in. There's no guarantee you straight out kill the Charizard, though. Should be clear there. Then you got the Aerodactyl, who's also going to be weak. But then you have to deal with the Dragonites. And even with a legendary, Anamon's got a type strength against it. There's still 3 pseudo-legendary dragons, each with a elemental move that could take down everything on this list. So that's why it's a maybe, but I do think it's possible. The only other shocking champion that's a problem to deal with would be Cynthia. This is due to the fact that, again, Spiritomb, you don't have a good answer on this team for Spiritomb. The only typing that it's legit weak against is Fairy, and no one on this team has Fairy moves. So you're just going to have to do your best to take that thing down. Now, I would say, honestly, just you let the Scovillain do its work, like get some damage in, Flamethrower, Spicy Extract, whatever you got to do. Because Scovillain sadly isn't good against anything on the team against her, save for the 2 water types. But even then, and it might be ×4 strong against Gastrodon, but even then, it's not the fastest mon in the world. Gastrodon's slower, but it's going to do more damage outright. And Milotic also is just, frankly, just a stronger Pokemon. So while it is probably advantageous to use it against them, because you lead with that first mon, I frankly would just let it. You also have Magneton on the team, so you still have answers to the water types. And chances are the Spiritomb is going to take the Scovillain down beforehand. So then you would come in, probably go Glaceon on this or Gigalith. The reason for that is Frostlass. What the hell am I talking about? Frostlass. Because it is neutral against Ghost at that point, and you will outspeed the Spiritomb, so you might be able to Shadow Ball it dead. Then he comes in with Roserade. She comes in with Roserade because the AI for her doesn't, choose effectively all the time. But the Roserade will go down, no problem. It's then the Gastrodon and the Milotic that are going to be problematic. Because the ground typing, doesn't make it partially weak, but you don't have Levitate, if I'm not mistaken, on it. So a really good Earthquake or Muddy Water or something like that is not going to be good. And even with it having some weakness to ground, water, I believe water is just neutralized, but still, I don't think you're taking the Gastrodon down in one go. And I think Glaceon, I keep saying Glaceon, Frostlass will probably go down. This is where you run into a problem. 2 of your mods straight out weak to Gastrodon. Honestly, 3 of them. The only one you can bring out at this point is Koraidon. So bring out Koraidon, get some damage off on it. Honestly, though, once she switches into Milotic, which would be the next one, go switch into Magneton and just hope you can take it down. And if you don't take it down, switch back in, use a Drain Punch, which I believe it learns. But use it. Actually, no, does it learn Drain Punch? I can't remember. I don't know. That's right. Koraidon can't learn Drain Punch. That really sucks. And then you got to deal with Lucario, which that one, even with, say, Gliscor, will be problematic. And then you got to deal with Garchomp, who could take down your Koraidon at this point, because Koraidon is going to be weakened. Not impossible, but still not a guarantee, which is why both of these are a maybe. But otherwise, let's just get into quickly the regions where you aren't going to have a problem at all with. Paldea. No problem whatsoever. You're going to get through the beauty of having a legendary so early on, and one like Koraidon has got great type coverage because fighting is a great type and Dragon just resists so much, is that it's going to cleave through a lot of early gyms. And then if you get through all the Elite Four, no problem. The Champ Gita's not going to be an issue. Galar. This is one of those times, Leon, you'll take Leon down without really any problem whatsoever. Yes, Dragon Ball, I believe, does outspeed Koraidon, but its move pool, fortunately, because it doesn't have Dragon Darts, it has Dragon Breath, it's not going to be that big of a problem. You will be able to handle it. And then Haxorus, you'll outspeed Haxorus, take the damn thing down, and at that point, you'll cleave through Leon, no problem. Then you got Kalos. Kalos, and then yeah, no, everyone else though, I do think you can win, but there is a catch. There's one gym leader you might actually struggle with, in each other region. In Kalos, I do believe that's Karina. Being a fighting type gym leader means Magneton does not have a good option, and having a Halucha flying press means both Koraidon and your Scovillain could actually be taken down by that thing, and it outspeeds definitely Scovillain. I don't think it outspeeds Koraidon, but that's just due to being legendary, I think. Actually, Koraidon, if I remember Koraidon's stats, let me see here. How fast is it? Because Halucha's got like 110 in speed. Koraidon, potato, boiled mushroom sticking in a stew. Let's see. Koraidon. See here now. What's the stats on? Again, it's all coming down to speed here. Okay, speed. Come on. Give me the actual stats, you douche. Okay. I don't care about your EVs. I care about the total stat spread. Okay, there we go. Okay, 135 speed. Now, Koraidon's speedy, man. It is fast. So, yeah, you would be able to hopefully outspeed it. But apart from having some dragon moves early on, in fact, actually, I think you have Dragon Claw early on. You definitely have a dragon move early, being a dragon type, obviously. You don't have Koraidon's signature move this early on level-wise, though, if I remember correctly. Or it's its starting move, I think. Okay, so yeah. Level 1, you start with Breaking Swipe, Sunny Day, Rock Smash. But, it does learn Drain Punch. How did I miss the Drain Punch? So it does, because I remembered using Drain Punch. I'm like, wait, why did I think it didn't have Drain Punch? And apparently as of Gen 9, it can learn Sunny Day? Oh, I know exactly what happened. I know exactly why I didn't think you could learn it. Because I remembered it can have Sunny Day and it has its just natural move that brings out the sun anyway. I was hoping it could learn either Solar Beam or Solar Blade, because that would make this thing more busted than ever. But it can't, unfortunately. That's why I thought it couldn't learn Drain Punch. Okay, we're good now. But it can, in fact, learn Drain Punch, because I'm like, I distinctly remember using Drain Punch so many times. It is so beneficial when I'm doing Terror Raids. But yeah, even with that said, it's still going to struggle. Like, I'm not saying you can't beat Karina. I think you can. And every other gym leader past that's easy. I'm just saying it might be difficult. Should also note that even though I think Cynthia and Sinnoh is possible, it is possible. I'm not going to lie. You might not get past freaking Rorik. Because, yes, you have a grass type on your team, but if you actually look at what Scovillain's moveset is prior, the only thing it really has is Leafage, and it's not fast. If that Craniados hits you hard enough, and hits you with a Bulldoze or a Rock move, or if any of them hit this guy with a Rock move, that would take this thing out. Like, it's a grass type, yes, but it does not resist Rock. It's strong against it, but it doesn't resist it. So that would be a little bit of a problem. I'd also say if you're playing Platinum, Fantina would actually be a problem, because it's early route. You do have dragon moves, yes, but other than that, you don't have a real good typing against her ghosts. And then also in the Elite Four, Lucian is actually a bit of a problem, because this team actually doesn't handle Psychic very well. It's not overly weak to it, but it's just not strong against Psychic. And then you add something like Mr. Mime, which is a Psychic Fairy, or Beldum, which is a Psychic, or not Beldum, Bronzong, which is a Psychic Steel. And then Alakazam, who can outspeed nearly everyone on this team. You actually could run into a problem. Koraidon, who, for all his power, could be taken down easy by a Dazzling Gleam. So you actually do have to be careful with Lucian. I, again, don't think it's impossible, but you'd have to be careful. Apart from that, though, your only real problems in, say, in Unova, who was it? Oh, yeah, is no one, actually. Even Alder, who I actually think is the tougher, especially with the advent of the fairy type, is the tougher of the two champions. Even Alder, you should be able to handle because you actually have Scovillain, who should, because fire resist bug, should be able to handle a bug buzz from the Acelgor. You should flamethrower it, be able to kill it outright, or at least swap into something that can, like Gigalith. Then literally just keep it in the wings to deal with the Escavalier, who's only weak to Sizz fire, and then just make sure to hold on to your Gigalith for dealing with Volcarona. If you can do that, you can be Alder without too much difficulty, to be honest. Because a giant chunk of his team is actually weak to either fire or it's weak to fairy move. Well, not fairy, but it's weak to fighting. Like a chunk of his team is weak to fighting. So you can cleave through a lot of his team without too much issue. As long as you keep Gigalith in the wings to deal with the Volcarona, you should be fine. And then in Hoenn, honestly, the biggest problem is actually Brawly. And just to be clear, in Kanto, the only real issue you got is Sabrina, to be honest. And again, that just comes down to this whole Psyche thing. But really, the biggest issue in Hoenn is Brawly. Even Steven Stone is actually pretty easy to take down compared with this team. And Drake is no big issue either. But no, Brawly is a problem because, yeah, you got a grass fire type. That's pretty cool. And you got a Magnemite. You wouldn't have a Magneton. That Magnemite going down fast. So that means because it's the steel type. So you're really only kind of working with a Scovillain. And it's certainly got the possibility. I mean, it learns Flamethrower on evolution, so you'll definitely have that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's I'm not actually sure you can get past Brawly with this team. It's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible, especially with like having both Flamethrower and I believe Spicy Extract. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but if you can get past them, all the other gyms are going to be no problem after that. And then the Elite Four, no real struggle. Even Steven, not that big of a struggle. Still, though, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you folks for the next one. Later.